The Colorado Buffaloes will be sending 4 players to the NFL Combine in Indianapolis, but one of those players will not be Shilo Sanders.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Let me tell you about FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So go check them out. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so that way you don't miss out on a moment of the coverage. And I want to thank you guys for making me your first listen of the day. Let's talk about it. The NFL Combine, or the NFL, released its 329 invitees to March's Combine, and Shilo Sanders was not among them, right? Colorado had 4 players invited. I was pretty shocked at some of the names who were left off the list, but I think the most notable is Shilo Sanders because obviously he's the son of Deion Sanders. He has the biggest name, the biggest cachet, and there's a few different ways to look at this, right? I think, one, Shilo Sanders would have benefited greatly from being there. That being said, he's not the only player that was left off the list that would have benefited greatly from being there, right? I think being in front of 32 GMs and all these guys is a prime opportunity for everyone. And although Shilo Sanders has the biggest names or one of the biggest names in college football, he was left off the list, as was Will Sheppard, Cameron Simmons-Craig, Chidozie Nwankwo, BJ Green. Like, a lot of these guys were left off. And so when you hear that he's not invited, it's like, what is this? What do you make of this now? Well, Shilo Sanders will still have a chance at the Colorado Pro Day. If the Big 12, which they did this last year, they had a Big 12 Pro Day, which kind of gave the conference as a whole, because maybe some of these teams don't show up to select schools' Pro Days. Maybe that gives them a chance, right? So Shilo Sanders left off the list. I don't want to say it's surprising. I would say I'm indifferent or not too surprised, I guess. I lean more on the side of not being too surprised at this point, simply because I don't think Shilo Sanders had the season that NFL teams would have liked to see this past year, right? I think Shilo Sanders has had, last year in particular was a really good season, I think, for him. But this past year, he was injured, and it clearly, when he came back, I think it affected his play, it affected his performance. I think even when he wasn't injured, he was still playing like he was injured in a way where it was like, he was bracing. He just wasn't the same. And I think he could have been invited. Honestly, I feel like there's a discussion for both, right? I think on one side, Shilo Sanders is a hard-hitting safety with a lot of potential. Obviously, has great genes, coachable player, and is probably going to be a hustle guy when he gets to the NFL that will probably start off in special teams. Now, do they want special teams guys at the NFL Combine? Probably not. But that being said, I think he brings a lot of winning qualities and a lot of qualities that NFL teams like. That being said, he didn't have a great season. Like, let's just look at the PFF grades, for instance. Overall grade of 68.3, run defense grade of 67.5, tackling grade of 74.4. Then you have the pass rush, which doesn't really matter for him, 68.9. Coverage grade, 71.7. For reference, Cameron Simmons-Craig had a 74 defensive grade, 80.7 run defense grade, 77.7 tackling grade, and 73.3 coverage grade. So if Cameron Simmons-Craig's not getting invited with numbers like that, then it's hard to make an argument for Shilo Sanders. Shilo Sanders was also tied for second on the team in penalties and struggled in coverage. They have him giving up catches 7 of the 9 times he was targeted. That being said, I do think he's showed enough promise to maybe garner an invite, but at the end of the day, this is what I was told from someone who works in the NFL draft space. I'll just leave it at that. It's not a popularity contest at the Combine, so they're not going to invite players just because they have big names. They're inviting players because these are the guys that teams want to see. And unfortunately for Shilo, he wasn't included in that list. That doesn't mean it's the end-all, be-all for him. That being said, I do think if we're talking about true snubs, I think Shilo Sanders can be considered a snub simply because his name, the potential he has, and obviously the cachet. That being said, you look at a guy like Will Sheppard, who I thought was one of the stars of the East-West Shrine Bowl, who I thought, outside of a couple drops this year, had a great season. Big receiver, strong, physical. I thought he got snubbed. BJ Green is an all Big 12 and all Pac-12 pass rusher, who had, I think he had 6.5 sacks last year, around 5 this year. He was left off the list, and makes me wonder because he's very versatile, and pass rushers are premium. And I'm not saying he's going to go in the NFL and be J.J. Watt, but he had a really good season. And then Chidozie Nwankwo, who undersized, which I feel like that's probably playing a role in it, right? Run stuffer. I would have liked to see him make it. Honestly, I would have liked to see him get the opportunity. And again, as I keep saying, this isn't the end-all be-all for these guys. That being said, Chidozie had a 77.5 grade, 82 run defensive grade, and BJ Green, 78.3 defensive grade, pass rush grade of 88.8, which was the second highest on the team behind Arden Walker. And one of those things, and he played 140 more snaps than Arden Walker. So Colorado guys get left off, and I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, it is what it is, right? At the end of the day, the draft is a place and time where in the moment, it feels like a huge deal. And all those guys that go undrafted in the NFL draft or aren't drafted in the first round, every guy who's not drafted in the first round thinks to themselves, wow, my career is really starting to fall off, right? You think Tom Brady, when he was taken in the 6th round, was like, oh, this is great. This is where my legend begins. He was probably like, damn, this sucks. Brock Purdy, taken with the last pick of the draft. You think he was like, wow, that's fun. I really wanted to go last overall. I really wanted the mystery relevant jersey, right? We put so much pressure on the draft, and we put so much pressure on where we go in the draft. And it's like, at the end of the day, you could get into the NFL at any avenue. All it takes is one team to fall in love with you, whether that's in the draft, undrafted free agent signings, or whatever it may be. So for Shilo Sanders, Will Shepard, Chidozie Nwankwo, BJ Green, Cameron Simon Craig, who I think will make a team happy one day. They didn't get invited to the combine. Big deal, right? At the end of the day, this doesn't define their career. There's still going to be a path to the NFL. I would have liked to see those guys there, because I think when people think about Colorado, they think of Shedeur, they think of Travis, right? But there's a lot more guys and this isn't a knock on Shedeur or Travis. There's a lot more guys who are making impacts that are really going unseen, unnoticed. And I would have liked to see these guys get an opportunity. But again, this doesn't define them. They'll still have plenty of opportunities to make some noise. When we come back, there was a really interesting notion about Travis Hunter on the list and where he was supposed, or where he's going to be tested or played, if you will, when it comes to the NFL. We'll talk about that. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. There's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because with FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to be on a fourth quarter comeback, you could stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use. So right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Let's talk about it. Travis Hunter, where was he listed on the position groups in terms of the NFL Combine invitees? And maybe it was a typo, right? Maybe it was just a, I don't know. They didn't want to use extra characters, right? In a world where we're kind of lazy or whatever it may be. Travis Hunter was listed, and I guess it's kind of hard to go with the laziness thing because he was listed in the group as well. So ignore that. I was just trying to add some suspense to it. That being said, Travis Hunter was listed as a corner, and other notable guys who are listed as corners in this: Denzel Burke, Kobe Bryant, Billy Bowman, Johnny Barron. But none of those guys play both ways, and none of those guys are Travis Hunter. So let's talk about it. Does this shock me? One, no. I think most pro personnel, when they think of Travis Hunter, they think corner who could play receiver, right? And that's not me saying that. That's what NFL personnel people say about Travis Hunter, because it's like, hey, we want more elite corners. We want guys who could come in and shut down a Justin Jefferson, or who could shut down an A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Jamar Chase, whoever it is, right? Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. We want guys who could shut those freaks down. And you don't get very many legendary corners that come through, right? I think like the last true corner where I was like, damn, that guy's he's an all-timer. I don't want to say Patrick Peterson, but that feels accurate. I could be missing someone, but like Darrelle Revis. Like I don't feel like we've had a Darrelle Revis kind of guy in quite some time. Now I could be missing someone, so please feel free to comment if you think I'm missing someone. But you know what I mean. Like we're not seeing Darrelle Revis walk through. Like there's not a Darrelle Revis in every NFL draft. We'll just put it that way. And Travis Hunter could very well be a very, 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 very great corner because he's got the ball skills, he's got the athleticism, he's great in man coverage, he's great in zone coverage, as we saw against UCF. I think it was Arizona or UCLA last year where I think it was Arizona, where basically covering two guys at once, playing his zone and breaks up breaks up what would have been a touchdown. Like Travis Hunter could do it all. That being said, if I'm Travis Hunter or Travis Hunter's representation, I go, yeah, we'll work out. Honestly, if I was Travis Hunter, I wouldn't work out at all because you're a top 5 pick. You don't need it. That's my stance on it. Same thing with Shador. I wouldn't do it. Right. At a combine event like this, if you are already viewed as a top 5 pick, you could really only hurt your draft status. Like Shador Sanders going from pick 1 to 6 doesn't do much for him outside of change his pay a little bit. And I don't know if he cares that much. I think Shador Sanders would rather go to the right team. Same thing with Travis Hunter. I don't think he cares that much. I know that I think in theory they both want to go number 1, but if they go number 3 or number, say, 7, I don't think it's going to like haunt them. And I don't think participating is that big of a deal. That being said, him being listed as a corner is interesting. If I'm Travis Hunter and his representation, I would say I'm a receiver first who could play corner because I think it comes down to career longevity. I think receivers, we've seen them. You see them last a little longer, right? If you're a corner, you're backpedaling against the most freakish guys in sports. When you can't touch them, can't be physical with them, and you're trying to keep up with them while running backwards. If you're a receiver, you could kind of milk a career a little bit longer than normal, right? I think a Larry Fitzgerald, Adam Thielen's not really like a legend, but he's someone who's getting up there in age. Randy Moss, T.O., like all these guys who are really good receivers got up there in age and were still had roles, right? If you're a corner, you don't last that long. It's just, it is what it is. And then also, not that it's about the money, but at the end of the day, these guys could say whatever they want about it not being about the money, but at the end of the day, all these guys want to get paid. So if we look at the highest paid corner in the league, it is Jalen Ramsey at $24.1 million, the highest 3-year APY. If you look at the highest receiver, it is Justin Jefferson at $35 million. If you were to say put Ramsey as a receiver, his salary, guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, his teammate Jalen Waddle, who's probably the second best receiver on his own team, DJ Moore, Brandon Ayuk, AJ Brown, CeeDee Lamb, all those guys are getting way more than him, right? So if you're a guy who could play receiver or corner and you have the choice, I would lead receiver. I think you can have a longer career. I think you'll get more money. And I don't know. I mean, if it's about legacy for Travis Hunter, I don't know. It could be. I think you could build more of a legacy receiver. I don't know. I have a hard time with that debate because obviously if you're great at either position, you'll be remembered. But that being said, I feel like, and this isn't about recognition. I don't think Travis Hunter plays football for the recognition. I think you have an easier time being remembered as a receiver, right? I was just talking in my head, and I was like, Richard Sherman was like a generational corner, and I forgot about him, right? There's corners who come and go, and I don't feel like, especially nowadays in the way football is played, I don't feel like we're going to see dominant corners that much. And so I think if Travis Hunter cares about legacy or cares about glory and impacting the game in the most way, I think it's at receiver. You guys comment below, what position do you think Travis Hunter will play? I don't think he could go wrong at either. At the end of the day, I think whatever team drafts him, the way I would manage Travis if I drafted him would be like, hey, we're going to play you at receiver X amount of snaps per game, and we're going to play you at corner X amount of snaps per game. And I think you go from there. And I think you pick and choose when you go over that. And I think you pick and choose when it's like, okay, we're blowing this team out. We don't need you to be running routes or to be blocking for running back. Or on the contrary, where we're down big, we don't need you to be diving in tackles or getting blown up on run plays, right? So it's really weird because Travis Hunter being so dynamic, it will almost become an Achilles heel for him if the right team doesn't draft him. If the right team doesn't draft Travis Hunter, it makes his impact difficult to judge because they may not know how to use him correctly. So it's all about fit. It's all about their plan for him. And at the end of the day, it's all about making Travis Hunter happy and using him the best way you can. Otherwise, you just wasted a draft pick on a generational talent. So best of luck to whoever drafts him, because you're getting a great player, but you're also getting a great mystery and great challenge in terms of how to use him. So I wish you the best of luck. When we come back, we're going to be talking about Deion Sanders' take on parents' involvement in recruiting and why it's not so great. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, so make sure to like, subscribe, follow, so you don't miss out on a moment of the coverage. Let's talk about it. Deion Sanders the other day talked on with Shannon Sharp, and he was talking about players' parents being involved. It was on First Take, and he was talking about players' parents being involved in NIL recruiting, and I liked what he had to say because I think this is a reminder to where the sport is heading, and I don't know how to fix the problem, but it's not my job to fix the problem. That being said, Coach Prime's talked about how it's very different from when he was being recruited to now. He says it's because parents are involved. Once upon a time, my parents were praying for us and couldn't wait until we got to the next level. If we choose to bless them, they receive the blessing. Now, these parents will never gain a darn thing. They want theirs off the top, and that's not proper. He said, I feel bad for these kids and some of the agents they have attached to these young men. It's very unfortunate. He continued, he said, when kids come to play for me at Colorado, they come to play for me and the coaching staff that we have assembled. They hadn't come to play for money because I let them know that will maintain you. The pro contract is going to sustain you. So we're chasing that thing. I don't attract those type of kids that are playing for a bag. I attract those type of kids that just play because they love the game. That's what I want. I don't like the other thing. That's the thing that has disrupted a lot of things because kids nowadays are choosing a bag rather than a situation in place that's more conducive to their success. And I could not agree more. Obviously, he knows this better than anyone. So I'm not going to pretend like I know more about the situation than Coach Prime. That being said, I think this is the NCAA's fault or whoever the governing body is going to be. Like, I think college football as a whole, college basketball, I don't know about baseball yet. I think basketball and football for sure need to quit screwing around and just figure out how to govern themselves or have a commissioner, because at the end of the day, this is not your mom and dad's college football, right? When my parents were growing up, I mean, my parents are pretty old I'm 25. My parents are both well into their 60s. But when they were growing up, it was like you were recruited and you went and played football, and that was that. There was obviously always some under the table deals. I mean, shout out SMU, shout out Reggie Bush, and shout out all the McDonald's bag, Jeremy Pruitt. I think it was Jeremy Pruitt. Anyway, there was always all this money collusion, right? But now that it's on the table, it's like people are blowing the sport apart because they want money more than they want fit, more than they want career trajectory. I don't know. And I mean, there was a great piece from On3 the other day, and it was like the 4 things that recruits and their families ask for the most. And it was cars, I think it was money, or just like cars, cash, houses, and land. Like, what are we talking about? Like, you're recruiting me to play quarterback, or I'm recruiting you to play quarterback, and you're going to go ask me for a 10-acre property in Nashville? Like, prove something to me before I give you the 10-acre property, or before I give you the money to buy the 10-acre property. And I think there needs to be a way to govern NIL. I'm all for players getting paid, but the way that it's happening is obviously not sustainable. It's obviously not great for the sport because we have guys being tampered with at all stops. So really interesting take from Coach Prime there, because as always, he's saying the quiet part out loud, the part that nobody wants to say. He's saying it out loud. These parents are overbearing. I mean, it's in all aspects of life with these young athletes. It's parents going out officials. Why do you think we have an official shortage in youth sports? Because the parents are ridiculous. And it's the same thing with these kids and their recruitments. The parents are ridiculous. They're like, my son's going to go to the NFL. He's going to be the greatest. And it's like, yeah, your son's probably going to transfer in a year, and we're going to waste $100,000 on him, and we're not going to get that ROI. So very interesting take from Coach Prime here. I look forward to seeing if there's ever any changes to college football. I doubt it, or at least in the near future here. But I'd love to see some changes. So This has been another episode of Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We're about 30 subscribers from, or I think 50 now. I think it's 50, not 30. Excuse me. I think we're about 50 subscribers from 7,000. Let's get there. Share this with a friend. Share this with your mom, your dad, your dog. I don't care. Let's have some fun. I'll see all of you guys tomorrow. Hope all of you have a great Thursday evening.